Well, the raccoon is being treed by the dog, so he just disappears. Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go! Hey everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad. I'm at the Antique Nomad on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, and I do a YouTube every Wednesday. I do 7 or 8 shows in a 10-week period when I'm in Florida in the wintertime. So I'm excited about that, and I've been doing a lot of shopping. The van's full of a lot of the true antique things, and it is getting pretty stuffed, but I should have room for what's left on the tables around me here. And a lot of what I have left out is fun novelties, cool kitsch, things from the mid-century advertising bit. So let's show a little bit of what I've been buying. I've been shopping and shopping and shopping, and I do have a lot in the car, so you'll have to look at the show videos to see more of that. Starting with this, I was happy to get this because this is an old paperback rack from the dime stores back in the 50s and 60s, and a lot of other advertising. The old electronic clocks like this from the 50s are really big sellers now. They go for about $100 a piece. And so I was glad to find that working order and at a price I could afford. The bestseller rack was a great deal. I think I paid $10 for it, and I'm going to put all sorts of paper and books on it at my shows, and I think it'll do really well. Did come into a little bit of paper stuff. I got one postcard just because I thought she was cute. I've got a lot of postcards, but I add little clever ones as they go. I also managed to get this piece, which is a nice early lithograph. This is a trade card for rubbers, which are galoshes, and it folds out. So originally it was just a little card where you just saw his face, and then the wings fold out and this line folds out. This is a company out of New York saying they carry a full line of these goods. Anytime you see a trade card that's more complicated, they're going to be worth some extra money. This one's probably worth about $15 to $20. And on the back, it's got all the color illustrations with the world. He sort of looks like Humpty Dumpty, but he's supposed to be a globe. It's talking about how everybody needs them in all walks of life, and they show men and women and children doing all sorts of stuff. This is going to date to about 1890. And I've got a collector there who really loves these sorts of things, so I brought that with him in mind. Also got this really cool thing. It's not in great shape, but it is a souvenir program with Cousin Minnie Pearl, back when she was first becoming popular in Nashville. And it's got a bunch of other celebrities in it as well, people who are country music and humor people. There's Minnie Pearl in a much earlier age. And I believe one of these is signed. It's not Minnie Pearl, but this gal here, Judy Lynn, signed this piece here. So when I saw this with the signature and it was only $2, I thought, well, somebody who's an old-time Western and country music fan is going to love that. Also got a couple other little paper things, but let's go to the next table now and talk about some of this stuff. Of course, jadeite is more kitchen glass than kitsch, but I look for jadeite anytime I see it. And the batter bowl here, yeah, I still left the price tags on because I get people asking, what did you pay for some of these things? And I figured I'd share that information where I can. This was on sale. I think I paid $24 for it. They sell for about $50. It is Fire King, and this one actually does have the mark. A lot of these batter pitchers you find in pretty good shape because I think it's something that people didn't use as much as they would maybe nowadays, what with the changes in the way people are cooking. And I look for barware anytime I see it. This one actually plays a little tune, I believe. Here we go. It says that it plays Last Time I Saw Paris. Not a song I'm familiar with, but it has a lot of Parisian bottle labels on it. This is going to be from the 60s with the little minaret top. And it works, and that makes it worth about $30. So that'll be fun to show. I did a YouTube recently, last week, where I showed this piece when I got it. This is Roseville, and this is the original Roseville with the tan base like it's supposed to be, not the reproductions, which is why I bought it. And I still do have customers for Roseville. It doesn't sell for as much as it did 20 years ago, but it's still very popular. So I always pick it up if it's priced right. And then back into kitsch land, we have some fun things here. I've got these wallfish. These are dated 1971. It's very hard to read the date, so you'll have to take my word for it. But these are from 1971, and there were a pair of them, and look at those colors. They are every color that was popular in the early 70s. And there's a radio from the same era right behind it that works. I didn't used to buy 70s era radios, but I've started to because the 70s era have the FM as well as the AM on them, and they have a little bit better stereo sound, and so a lot of the people like those. I bought this little piece partly because it was a good deal, and partly because if you are out there in YouTube land or on Instagram, Ashley Rose does videos, and she loves hens on nests, ducks on nests, anything like that. And so she kind of inspired me. I hadn't bought one for a while, and that one was only $12. It's a Westmoreland, and in that blue color from the late 60s, it should be worth about $25. So I thought that was fun. But let's get back to kitsch, because kitsch is something I really enjoy. So being in the South during my shopping trip, I of course had to pick up the redneck key holder, and it's great low humor. He's got his pick-em-up truck. He got rid of his tractor and traded it in on a bass boat, so you've got the keys for that. He's got his keys for his four-wheeler, and then, well, there was for the wife. She's gone. There was for the girlfriend, so now it's for the trailer. So I guess that's where he ended up. This was a souvenir from New Orleans, and this was probably done about 1975 or 80, whenever four-wheelers started to be a thing. I got a set of Dominoes because they're very popular in Florida. Dominoes is a game that's played extensively in the Caribbean, and so a lot of people who have moved to Florida from the Caribbean are interested in that, and that's an old Bakelite set. I also wanted to point this out because I just think it's fun. This is a piece of folk art. It says Coon Country, and, well, the raccoon is being treed by the dog, so he just disappears. And I thought that was really fun. I don't know why someone made this, but I just thought it was delightful, and it was under $10, and I thought, well, someone will have a good time with that for $20 or $25, so we're going to take that with us. This, just because you could see it in the background. Now, this seems very naughty. It seems not appropriate for our platform here, but when you open it up, it shows that if you think dirty thoughts, you're a dirty dog. And so it turns out that it's very, very clean. You just had to open it up to find out. That's from about 1970, and I get a kick out of that sort of thing, and those sort of dumb novelties always sell. People think that they're fun. In terms of things with motion, I personally collect Barware, and I had to get these when I saw them. It was $28 for the whole rack of them. And they all are motion carved pieces from the German Black Forest area done in the 1950s. This guy puts his glasses up to his face when you press the lever. This one's just stationary. This one doffs his hat. This one does as well. And this one does as well. So they're really cute. They're something that people really enjoy. And I honestly get about $20 a piece for them. So when I saw the set for $28 for all of them, I got very excited. I will sell those separately because they're not really a full set. They have a stand that they go with, but because the one guy is not a motion guy, I think he's a replacement. So I'll end up parting those out. And then selfishly, I will probably keep the base for my Barware collection because I collect those as well, and I've got a bunch of them that are laying around. The shows in Florida are very good for me. I typically do several $1,000s per show, at least a few thousand, so I'm excited and looking forward to it. Bar sign on the left, the Stroh's headquarters, that's a very hard one to find. And I didn't used to pay much attention to plastic signs from the 60s and 70s, but this one's early 60s, and it's three-dimensional. And apparently those figures got broken off of those very frequently. And so to find one in good shape that works, I paid $50. That sounds like a lot. It did to me, but I paid it after I looked online and found that none of those were available, and that things similar to it were selling for over $100. So I thought, well, I've got a lot of collectors for bar stuff, and I'm going to give that a shot. And then next to it, you see, I keep talking about these Venetian blind shades, as I like to refer to them. Let me move this chair out of the way so I can get a little closer here. And I love these things because they're all held together by chains, and then they really just go nice and flat for being portable. This piece with the Asian figures dates to the 1950s, and it is a good lamp in working order. I've also got some Panther lamps from that period that are already packed in the car, so we'll be taking those down there, and I think that they'll do very well. Another thing people like are, again, electric clocks. I showed you the advertising clock. This one is by United. It works great. It's from the late 50s or early 60s. Now, it's not as modernistic looking as the ones that are just the Sputnik with the pieces that come out, but actually this piece is pretty desirable too. It should sell for about $40 to $50 in working order. And considering how much the Sputniks are going for, this is a nice alternative for somebody. Let's see what else I can show. This was cute. I went to a thing called Fleur de Flis in Louisville, and they were having their Christmas show, and there were these two gals who had old toys, and this was one of them. Let's see. Of course, you're going to make a monkey out of me. Let me see if I can wind it a little more and get it to hop. It might be just... There we go.
Sideways.
I'm going to keep him so he doesn't hop off the table, but he's in working order. He's Japanese. I assume he with the she. This is going to be from the 1950s. This is when tin toys were still a big deal. These little pieces that folded over here that are the things that hold it together. These tabs were declared unsafe for children by some group here in the United States in the late 60s, and that's when you see the death of these kind of toys, because they couldn't make those with the metal tabs anymore. So to find them in working order is a good thing, and that should be worth about $20 to $25. And I paid less than half of that, so I was happy about that. This little piece here is naugahyde. There actually were pieces that were done by the company that made naugahyde as promotions, and these are 1960s era, and there are people who collect these, believe it or not, and some of them go for, gosh, $40, $50. This one's probably worth about $15. It's got the cute glitter on it, and it's something I think will sell fast. I always look for cigarette lighters because they always seem to be popular, particularly in Florida. I notice they sell well. This one with the violets is a Ronson from about 1950. That would have actually been for a lady's purse at the time. And it has not been monogrammed. I look for the ones that haven't been etched in because sometimes people want to buy them for that purpose. This one here has its original box with the crest on it, and I like that it's got the question mark. I know there's a purpose for that, and that this crest means something to someone. I don't know what it means, so I guess someone will come along and buy it and then tell me. I also, of course, look for political pins, and I grabbed some, also a couple of Coca-Cola pins. The foreign ones always sell. And then we've got clickers here. This one's the Indian fellow, Native American guy. There's the dog, there's a tiger playing a cello, which I'm not exactly sure why, and then you've got the little bird there. These little things are fun novelties kids had in the 50s and 60s, and there are people who collect them. They don't sell for a ton, but they sell for $6 or $8, and there's a lot of tourists who come to Florida. And so we look for little things. Now, we also look for little things that are expensive. Of all the jewelry here, this piece here is the most desirable. This is an Eisenberg fur clip. Eisenberg was the company that made the little black taffeta dresses, and they had jewelry put on to show them off, and the jewelry kept getting stolen, so it occurred to them maybe we should make jewelry, and they ended up just being a jewelry maker. There is a signature, which is probably very hard to read. I might have gotten it in a good light there, but it says Eisenberg Original, and this is going to be a 1940s era piece. These sell for about $125. Some other notable jewelry here, just a few pieces. I believe this to be Juliana. This blue set is Trifari. This set here is also Juliana, made in Rhode Island. This one, Juliana is rarely marked, but these colors are definitely them. These earrings with the little round floret that moves are also Juliana. And then there's some Sarah Coventry. This is a Kramer from New York. The blue piece is Czech, and the plastic pieces are all Bakelite. So I didn't find a ton of costume jewelry. I'm in the part of the country where people don't wear it so much, but I did find a few pieces, and it is popular where I'm going. This is a neat little piece, too. This came from a friend of mine's store in Madisonville, Kentucky. Her name is Gigi, and she's got Kesterson's Antiques. Her parents opened that store in 1946, and she's still running it 70 years later. And she had this little piece which has the lipstick attached. It's a compact. It looks like it's never been used. And I usually get about 30 to 35 for these. And she was generous enough to let me have it for 15. So I was very pleased. It was very kind of her. Also at her store I got this. This is a powder flask. A lot of the Civil War and reenactors like this sort of thing, but the other thing that is nice to me about it is that this one is genuinely old. This is something somebody actually used. It's not a reproduction or a fake. It's a little banged up on the back, but again, it was very inexpensive, only $15, so I will be able to sell this for probably $45 in this condition. And they do very well. Let's see what else we have here that's kind of fun. I won't go over every little bit, but I did get a couple of pocket knives. This one is Masonic. Anything that's fraternal order is definitely very popular to collect these days. The fraternal orders seem like I don't know if they're making a comeback so much, but there's definitely interest in them. And that is also partly why I bought these, and I'm going to do a little fashion show for you here. These are sashes. This one doesn't really go straight, but these are sashes, and I hope I'm not offending someone by putting these on because I'm not a member of the Oddfellows Club, but that's what these 3 interlocked O's are for. These were all various vestments that were worn about 1900, and a lot of these lodges have gone away. And so because of that, there's a lot of these that have come out on the market, and some people like wearing them for costume. This one here particularly, because it stars in a more neutral pattern, is something that I think will definitely find buyers. I find that these sell for me for about $25 to $35 a piece, unless there's some particularly good high-ranking person, and then they can go for a lot more. This one with the 2 dolls in it, this is from the 1950s. This is red fiberglass. And these little dolls were just put in because they were fun and from the era. But they basically are one of these glass blocks that are cut open so you could put anything you wanted. And some people would put plants in them. Some people would put marbles or stones or shells in them. They sell for about, roughly $30 these days. And that's about what I expect to put on that one. In front of it, we've got this guy. These are German souvenirs, again, like the bottle openers we saw. This one says, "Greetings from Germany." These were done before the Second World War, and I think a little bit after as well. I think this one's from about the 1950s. Oftentimes you'll see a Scotty dog sitting up here, but the owl is another popular motif, and people love owls again, so I bought this one. Matches would go here, or pipe cleaners. You would have a match box here so that you'd have matches sitting open, and then your cigarettes went in here, and you've got 2 ashtrays. And they're cute little novelty pieces. They usually sell for about $45, and I think this one was only priced $10 or $15, so that was a pretty easy grab for me. I'm going to take these off while we go through the other stuff. This guy was just fun. I went to a crazy place called Oddly Amazing Antiques in Clarksville. It's a really fun store, very offbeat, and if you saw my YouTube, you go back and see it, you can see the inside of that store. But I bought this from them because I get a lot of Canadians in Florida coming down for the winter. And the Canadian Mountie was sold by a company called Giftcraft out of Toronto. Now, this is another company that was an importer of Japanese things, but Giftcraft is strictly for the Canadian market, and because of that we see motifs like the Mountie that are not things that we usually see in the United States. And anything with Mountie sells well, so I went ahead and got that. I look for World's Fair stuff. I did find two pieces from the New York World's Fair this time. One is a compact again. It was only $8. I believe these sell for about $25 to $30. And then the little stand here has the Unisphere and some of the buildings, and I believe that's a tiny Statue of Liberty and a tiny Empire State Building. The New York World's Fair ran in 1964 and 65 both. So we get people who collect it because they were born in those years or because they lived in New York or they're in New York now. It's in the area of Flushing, Queens, so a lot of interest in those things. Got some novelty salt and pepper shakers. I just like these. I look for ones that are a little more unusual. This one here is cute because it's a sailboat with the lighthouse. The top of the lighthouse is the shaker, and the sailboat is the other shaker, and then the other pieces are in the base. These tended to fall around and get broken, so when you see them in good shape, speaking of which, let's get you back in. There we go. And they have the cork stoppers because they're Japanese from the 50s. You see plastic stoppers at a later time. I also got this one because it's unusual in that it's the TV set, but it's got a Western playing. So again, you know that's a 1950s or 60s piece. Now, I also wanted to point out a couple of older things that I'm bringing for specific customers in Florida. I have a fellow who loves advertising pieces, and this one is a thermometer that you would hang in some sort of boiling pot for eggs. It's from the Dixie Farm Store in Louisville, and you can see that it's a little warmer than it says today. The thermometer should be up a little higher. I'll open that up and clip it. But it also has advertising on the back for all the things they sell. Baby chicks and all sorts of things related to farming, and this is going to date to probably the teens or about 1920. The other piece I have here, and this is not a terribly rare one, but this is a penny toy. If you see old looking little tiny metal toys like this, don't think that, well, gee, that might be worth a few dollars. There are some penny toys that are worth hundreds of dollars depending on the motif. Now again, I think this one's a little more common, but I wanted to show you because it's a good example of the type. It dates to about 1910, and they're called penny toys because that's what they cost back then. Now they could be anywhere from $15 to $20 for a common piece and as much as several hundred for some of the rare ones. Got some kitchen stuff, a little bit of Pyrex. Butter dishes always sell, and so does Pyrex. This set here is a 1950s set. I'd never seen this set before with the plastic fantastic holder and the salt and pepper and all that. And it also has the piece here, which is for your sugar, and this one here I believe is for honey. So those were kind of fun. And also I got a set of this. This is actually quite scarce. This is Buffalo China out of Buffalo, New York. And it has two marks on the back, which I'll show you. It's got the Cafe au lait, which is just the brown with the stripes, blank without the horse on it. And then it also says Albert Pick Company. Albert Pick was a supplier to restaurants, so this was actually made for a restaurant. And restaurant ware is very collectible, and the reason is that it's very durable. You can put it in the oven, you can microwave it, you can put it in the dishwasher over and over. It's all transferware, so the design's under the glaze, it won't wear out. And these with the horse on it are actually very uncommon. I did get some stuff just because it looks like Florida. And I have to give credit. I was instructed to buy this piece. I did not really know to buy this piece. I like shells and I like drip glaze. But this particular piece, I looked at the back and I saw this logo. And I knew that this was a 1970s McCoy pottery logo. I haven't thought a whole lot about 1970s McCoy other than the smiley face and the novelty pieces. But McCoy is so popular now, and I was instructed to look it up, and I did, and it turns out it's worth about $25 to $30, and it was priced at $12, so I got it. Also, these Novelty Lamps. This is 1960s. You can tell by the orange color. made in Florida. It does work. The little Christmas bulb in the light gives a red glow to everything, so this glows red and orange, and it's shell art. Sometimes you'll see them with a flamingo or a palm tree and plastic stuck in there. Sometimes you'll even see them with religious figures in there. This one's just by itself, which I think in some ways might be more appealing. I've had the other kinds a lot before. I haven't had one that was just the shells, and so I'm curious to see how that does. This piece here I want to show because this is Blanco Glass, and this color is chartreuse. This was introduced by Winslow Anderson, their first designer, who worked for them in 1950 to 53. You see little tiny bubbles in here. The tiny bubbles are called seed bubbles. The way they got them was crazy. They wanted to do something where there were lots of little random bubbles in the glass because they thought it would make it a little more interesting than plain. And somebody said, well, you just have to throw something in and it causes a chemical reaction. You'll get a lot of little bubbles. And the thing they ended up throwing into the glass batch that did this was potatoes. So they would throw a potato into 1500 degree molten glass and it would explode into all these tiny little bubbles and they would come out in the glass. So that's how that was made. And that piece is worth probably $45 or $50. The people who had it didn't know what it was, didn't care what it was. I paid $10, so that was happy. And then also from the 50s, chartreuse was a very popular color in the mid-50s. This is a TV lamp. This was also $10. It's a more basic one, but what's really nice about it is the color is vibrant and it's naturalistic, and when you light it up, the light comes out of these slits in the side as well as up. So it really gives it a very nice sort of subtle glow to a corner of a room. And I know a lot of modernists who like these sort of things. I certainly do, and I think that will be a hit. While we're on the topic of 50s modern, I love buying Murano glass trays from the 50s. We see these around. They're 50s and 60s vintage. A lot of them look like amoeba, like the one on the right here. And then the one on the left is a little more controlled, where they did a two-layer color. They applied the yellow under the cranberry glass. This one's probably 1960s when these colors were in style. The green and gold is from about 1960. Very popular. A lot of people like Venetian glass. These always sell for me. I pay $10 to $14 for them. They usually sell for about $30, especially if they're interesting. There were a few good companies that made them. If you want to take hours and hours looking for teeny tiny etch signatures, sometimes you can find a sleeper like a Barovier or one of those firms. But I probably won't do that. I'll leave that to someone else. Now, since we've been looking at a whole lot of 50s stuff, let's get into some more antique pieces for a moment. I did buy some nice metalwork. This guy is a Billiken. For those of you who haven't seen a Billiken, and there's a big story about how they came to be, and it's for good luck, and it's got good information on the back with a patent number. So this piece does date to about 1910. And I find that Billikens sell very well. This piece, I believe I paid $35 or $40 for, because this is about a $95 piece. In this condition, if he was in a little cleaner condition, he'd sell for over $100. There was a company called Judd that made a lot of metalwork and desk items around the turn of the last century and into about the 1920s. And in the 20s, because of the discovery of King Tut's tomb in 1923, there was a real interest in camel designs. So you see these are, I believe it's called a Bactrian camel with the single hump. And these are bookends. They have a bronze patina to them, even though they're made of cast iron. They're very heavy and substantial, and that's part of the reason people like them, because they can actually use them. I paid $30 for these. They should sell for double that. I buy camel things anytime I see them, and I know that the fellow who does Old Curiosity Shop on YouTube recently got the 30s teapot in the ceramic that's a camel, and that's a great piece too. I look for them anytime I can find them. They're very interesting animals up close too. I've ridden one once. So on the back, these bookends say Shakespeare House, and it is in fact Shakespeare's house in Stratford-on-Avon. These are American made though, and they're going to be right around 1925 to 30, because you're starting to get the deco influence with this diagonal line here. But the house itself, of course, is traditional because it was built in the 1500s. Finding it with the paint on it is the trick, and these are worth about $40 to $45. And I found this in a really crazy crowded antique shop that we're going to show. It's just amazing how much stuff was in that store. A place called Pedigo's in Clarksville, Tennessee. Got it right this time. This one was $2. It says Howdy Colonel, and it's from about 1960. These would have been done about the same time as the Kentucky Derby glasses of that time. And it has a big toast on the back to the Kentucky Colonel that is all written out. I took a chance on this because I sell in Kentucky. I thought it was an interesting piece. A lot of Kentuckians go to Florida in the wintertime. And I think I will actually take it down there because I found out it is worth $20. So that was a good fortune on my part. And then this piece here, I should definitely show. This is Fitz and Floyd. Fitz and Floyd is a Japanese ceramicist. I believe they still make things under that label. This is a 1970s or actually early 80s piece. It's got the FF mark. Their earliest stuff from the late 70s has the dates in Roman numerals, but in the 80s it was popular. A couple of different companies tried to do this metallic silver glaze. It was done in the 60s as well. It's very hard to do these reflective chrome glazes. They tend to burn off easily. All the stripes had to be painted by hand. This was a hard piece to make, and I don't think it stayed in the line long. The silver chrome glazes never do because the potters all find out how hard it is to do. And this piece, I believe, was $28, and I looked it up online, and one sold recently for $85, and so I picked it up. And let's see, if you, one other thing. Again, have to give credit where credit is due. Now, I knew about Mary Mushroom. I've had the canisters before. It's a Sears pattern that was done in the late 70s that's very popular because mushrooms from the 70s are a popular motif again. It's in the original, it's the tablecloth in the original wrap. And I thought, well, okay, that's cute, but it's a tablecloth. There must be a million of these around. Wrong. Turns out there are very, very few of them. I don't know if they came into the line late. Originally, when it was sold, it cost $2.97 in 1976, approximately. This piece, I could only find one that had sold recently. It turns out that it sold for $35, and it was kind of a mess. It had been used. It was in a big rumple. It was not new in the sleeve like this, and the bidding was fierce. So I actually think this is going to go very well. And I'm very glad that I got a little nudge to buy that because I might not have thought of it myself. We all learn things, and it's fun to shop with other people because they have a different eye than you do, and that's part of what makes the world go round. Down here on the bottom layer, real quickly, a couple of things that are interesting. This is from the mid-1980s. This is Boom Boom Mancini, and it's signed right here, so those of you who are boxing fans may be familiar with this. This piece is going to Florida with me because I think people from the East Coast are where you see the most boxing fans, and a lot of them come down for the season. Next to it here, I've got this piece, which is out of an old video store. Again, this is something that you think, well, that's not very old, but look, we've got the Twin Towers, so there's some age. And the movie The Big Easy was very popular. It turns out that this is a backlit one. Video stores are pretty much all gone now, and so that is a thing of the past, and movie buffs really like these things. It turns out they sell for about $60 a piece. I paid about $25, so I was happy with that. I also have, speaking of very recent history, I don't generally buy things as new as this, but Payless is gone. And so since Payless is gone, and I also bought this cool 50s shoe store bench, I thought, well, they'll be good together. So this is a Brannock device, and it turns out that, yeah, the ones from Payless are already selling for $25 and $30 online. So that is going to go to Florida because it matches the other piece. I only paid $10 for the shoe bench, which I think is terrific because those are pretty handy things for people to use. I also got a nice deal on the office chair. I remember when these old office chairs like this were just considered junk and people just gave them away. Now they want them back. This one I have priced at $59. I believe I paid $20 for it. And it should sell pretty quickly at this price, especially in good condition like this. They are adjustable, and what's nice is they've got 4 heavy legs with wheels, so they're not going to flip over on you like some of the 3-wheelers. And let's see what else is fun here. Okay, because we're going into a political year, I do look for political memorabilia, and this particular piece is rather irreverent. It hasn't been a long time since George W. was president, but there are people who love political parody, and it doesn't necessarily matter to them what side of the aisle it comes from. They just love this sort of thing. And so I saw this for $3 at an estate sale and thought, well, for that price, somebody's going to love it, and I suspect it's probably worth $30. I have a little bit of vintage fashion here. When I discovered this thing in a large heap of clothes, and we have a big conversation about, is it ugly or cute? And the thing is that now that I have it surrounded with the aluminum ashtray from the period and the right hat and some other pink stuff, I think it crossed over into cute, because it's so much about picking up colors and styles and putting things together. And I didn't really intend this vignette. This is just how the stuff came out of the box, but now I'm seeing it. I did have good fortune with some Modernist dinnerware. This is Metlocks. They did Freeform, Contempora, and other pieces, and these are big with collectors, 1950s, anything atomic looking. This is probably a $65 to $85 piece. I also got some small pieces of Franciscan Starburst from the 50s, and this is just a fantastic pattern. I have a collector who loves it so much she actually had this tattooed around her arm. Somebody was asking, do I plan out a show? And I have a basic idea of how I'm going to do things, and it really depends on the nature of the show. When I wrote the Treasure Craft Pottery Craft book and I did the LA Pottery Show to introduce that as a new old collectible line, I planned that booth down to every single piece where it was going to go, because I really was trying to make a statement. My general way of doing things at shows, though, is I separate the booth. I do usually a horseshoe shape. In the back, I put big things, proppy things, colorful things, things that are large and going to draw people in. And then on one side of the booth, I do, and like I know gender roles and that's all up in the air these days, but I'm just going to say it. I put things I think are more female-oriented on one side. I do costume, jewelry, boudoir items, figural pieces, things that I've had success selling to women before. And on the other side of the booth, I do a lot of advertising and guy stuff and things that car parts, things I think will appeal to men. And the reason for that is a lot of the people who come to antique shows are couples. The woman goes to one side, the guy goes to the other side. They each find something they like, and they meet in the middle and the back, and they're both holding something. So then, well, gee, I guess we both can buy it because we both found something, so we don't have to ask permission. So that's my general way of doing it. The other thing I really try to do is I try to stagger things. I don't have just rows of shelves where everything is the same and it's all in a line. I try to vary the height, put a big item in the middle of each shelf so that there's a focal point. That's how you can get a whole lot of weird, disparate things together in one booth and actually still have it be interesting. So that's my MO. Everyone has their own way. But since I do a lot of oddball stuff, I have to think about it. This little bank was also a Pedigo's find. Boy, that store just was crazy. I can't wait to see the response to that video. It does work. Am I doing it right? Oh. You know, I think it's because it's so cold in here. It works fine under ordinary conditions, so we're going to just leave that be. You know, it's always when you want to demonstrate something. But it does work. It was made in Reno, and it's from the 50s. I did get a little collection of dolls here. There's definitely a story behind these. Obviously, most of these are African American. They're made in America. They're all going to be made about 1940. Now, for black families at that time, it was not necessarily sure that you were going to be able to afford to buy a doll for your daughter. So a lot of times people made them by hand, like this one here. So this one's a piece of folk art, and you can see by the type of the scrap that they used for the clothing that it's going to date probably to about 1940. And it's cute because it's a mother with a baby, and usually you just see the one figure, so that's a little more special. And then this one is a composition. It feels like plastic, but it's actually like plaster of Paris and other things put together. And she's lost a little bit of her weave, but she's still cute, and I would say she's also about 1940. And then these two are ceramic bisque from the same era. But then this one is, if you were really poor, you made a corn stalk doll. This is actually a stalk of corn, and they've taken whatever burlap, rags, anything they could find to sew something together and make themselves a doll. These are very early folk art. This probably dates to about 1910 or 20. And these are very collectible. I don't find them very often. They sell for about $40 to $50. This phone, Northern Telecom, from about 1975, is definitely a winner. The shape, the color, this is going to be a $50 item at a show. We have some nice Art Deco glassware. I didn't open all of it because I'd have to pack it again, but this is a cool circa 1945 to 50 set with these great colors and the good graphics. We've got some big chalkware here. These are Miller Studio pieces with the jesters from about 1960. They always dated their stuff. In fact, we can see it says 1960 right on it, Miller Studio. And these are very collectible now too. They did all sorts of different designs. You see fish, and you see dancers, and you see fruit, and I think we've got over here a lovely flower. So these are pieces that people really enjoy, and they're not terribly expensive to collect, but they are hard to find in good condition. The clock here is a Jim Beam advertisement from about 1980, but the color is good. It's very man cave oriented, and it works, which is the important part, so it should sell for about double the price that's on it. I paid $15. I expect it to go for $30 or $35. This little guy is a nodder, or actually, we call them bobbleheads now, but they called them nodders in the old days. This one is made of composition ceramic. It's not plastic. And this one's a hard one to find because he's the Civil War guy, and he's the Confederate who's not going to forget. This dates to about 1965, which was the 100th anniversary of the Civil War. It was made in Japan. Very hard to find that particular motif, so even though he has a little bit of a doink that someone colored, I did not care because he's an extremely hard one to find. He was very inexpensive, and they sell for a lot. This piece here is Czech glass. This is 1930s. Sometimes it's marked, sometimes it's not, but these shapes in this deco pattern with these wild spatter colors, almost always Czech. This one from the 50s or 60s is Italian, similar in terms of the spatter, but a different weight entirely. It weighs about 10 times as much as this one. Well, ho, 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 and there we go. This guy is, of course, Santa Claus, and this is from Santa Claus Land in Indiana, which eventually became called Holiday World, and so it is no longer Santa Claus Land. This piece with this sort of stylistic writing is going to be probably 1940s, and it's in really great condition. I look for anything that says Santa Claus Land because it's just hard to find. On the left there, you're going to see a piece that is from the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. That's a souvenir piece. Those are hard to find because they were very lightweight ceramic and they tended to get broken. This one here had a big sign that said "Yikes" on it because, yes, that is real hair. And these are from the 1930s when the Bessie P. Scootman prints were popular. This was done around the same time, but they thought real hair would make it more realistic, and they put it under real-looking blankets, and it is realistic. A little too realistic for some people's taste, but I thought it was interesting, so I got it. And then this piece here I thought was nicely done. There's actually, I got three together. I'll just pick up a couple. The one on the right-hand side, let's see, have we got it right there? Okay. The one in my right hand, which is this way, is actually from 1799. These are book plates from an old English book that someone framed in the 1950s showing different occupations. This is a Chinese barber carrying his little barber table. And yes, the Chinese barbers would actually travel to you back then. And then this piece here on the left is an original watercolor, and I think it's very skillfully done, and the colors are good. I would say that it dates to about 1950. I have not been able to find out who that artist is, so I may hold it aside until I do, because it seems to me like it could be something of interest. It certainly was interesting to me for $8. I had to have it. I think they thought it was a print. So, enjoyed it. I like it when you say what things are worth. Well, thank you. I will try to do more of that. I'm getting a little more accomplished at this. I'm still learning. I will try to tell you what things are worth, and also if I can remember what I paid for them, I'll do that as well, because I know that that makes it interesting for you folks too, and it is part of what I do. Had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'm sure you hear my voice echoing out of this vase. I do anyway. But it was good to have you with us, and we'll see you again soon, everybody. Happy collecting. Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.